Whether you like it or not, e-bikes or e-mountain bikes in this particular case seem to be on the increase. We're seeing more on the trails, and manufacturers are included more and more within their ranges. So today we figured we'd have a sit down and just talk through some of the pros and cons and our actual thoughts on the bikes. So Tom, what do you think about them?
I'm still kind of conflicted a little bit about them. I don't have any sort of ideological hatred towards them. I don't really care if people want to go for a ride and have a little bit of electric assistance. For me, I've certainly enjoyed sort of my time on them, but I'm still not sure whether I'd ever choose to own one at sort of this point in time.
So I guess if you're the only one out of a group of mates that's got one, you're going to kind of be isolated if you're just going to zip off everywhere.
Certainly sort of on the climbs, you're definitely, you benefit from that, from the motor, and that's going to make it difficult to ride with your mates, as I say, unless everyone has them. But I guess it would just take a change in tack as to how you ride in a group. I know sort of the guy we use for photography in the magazine has one, and he has to really sort of cut back on the way he's using it when he's riding with everyone else. But when he's out on his own, he can really let rip, and he has a great time on it. You know?
Yeah, because they're fun. Ultimately, they're great fun to ride, aren't they? Of course, they've got limitations, but they are fantastic fun, aren't they?
Yeah.
Obviously, e-mountain bikes seems to be a very controversial topic. So let's start with the bad bits, I guess. We've got things like the limiter, so they can only go so fast, which means I've found you ride them on a fast trail, you get above, is it 25, 27 kilometers an hour?
60 miles an hour.
And all of a sudden you can't really, well, you're pedaling a really heavy bike, it's like a 45, 48 pound bike, and it kind of, yeah, it's not quite as fun, is it?
Mm-hmm. It certainly feels like it almost decelerates as soon as you sort of hit that limit, because the effort you're putting in is to be increased.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's pure, gravity fed, then great, they're fantastic. Or if it's uphill, for example, brilliant. But yeah, on those mellower trails, I find that it can in places become kind of frustrating, and you do just end up coasting a bit and waiting for it to slow down enough so you get that e-assist to kick in again. Mm-hmm. What are the other downsides, do you think?
I mean, obviously the weight is going to be a big issue. You've got a big old battery in there connected to a massive motor. They do weigh a lot, as say 45 to 50 pounds, so considerably heavier than a normal trail bike. The weight is kind of a double-edged sword though, because the weight is pretty low and central in the bike, so that impacts on the suspension feel a bit.
But it does feel super stable, doesn't it? You ride rough stuff and the bike's just stuck to the ground really. Mm-hmm. Feels like you could get, if you've got the right tyres on, loads of grip, and it's a bike that's hard to unbalance, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But does it lose that sort of agility a little bit too?
Yeah, totally. You're not flicking it and popping it all over the trail like you maybe would on a conventional trail bike. But I guess it's a different experience, isn't it?
And obviously, if you're going sort of on a hiker bike route or somewhere with a lot of stiles, you're probably not going to want to start hiking it over fences a lot. But
and then there's the price as well.
Mm-hmm. You're looking at, I reckon, a good three and a bit grand for a decent full sus here in the UK. Somewhere north of £2,000 for a decent hardtail as well, really, because you've effectively got almost £1,000 worth of machinery just plugged onto a normal bike.
Yeah, maybe not quite such an issue here in the UK, but obviously certain parts of the world there's trail access issues, which seems to be becoming a bit more of a problem, and obviously that's what a lot of people are talking about. So those are some of the negatives, but on the flip side, there's got to be some positives, right? So Tom, for you, what do you think the best bits are?
Biggest thing for me with an e-mountain bike is basically you can pack more trails into your average ride. So if you spend a lot more of your time climbing up hills, because it generally takes longer to climb up than it does to get down, if you can get up them quicker, it means you've got more time in, say, your 2-hour window to go riding to hit the descents.
So yeah, if you've only got a short amount of time, you can just bang out more laps than you would normally, right?
And
that makes sense.
The other thing I've sort of found is that if you're doing little loops up and down a hill, you might only sort of manage to get 6 or 7 done before you're pretty knackered. If you've got a motor helping you or assisting you, then you can potentially get 8, 9 or 10, depending on what you're sort of feeling like for that day.
And it is still a good workout, isn't it? Yeah. I found, you're trying to muscle around a big heavy bike, and you're still working, well, you can, if you want to, still work pretty hard on the climbs. You're just going a lot faster. Mm-hmm. You still, I know a lot of purists will say that you're not going to, it's not like for like, and it isn't, but it can still be a good physical workout.
Yeah, I mean, going up sort of a steep, a real steep climb that you'd struggle to do on a normal bike at 16 kilometers an hour, 17 kilometers an hour, is tiring. Like,
Yeah,
there's no
yeah,
getting around
totally.
it. I guess, does that sort of tie into how these things work? I mean, they're pedal assist, so if you put in, say, 100 watts on like the sort of the smallest modes or the easiest modes, you might only get 20% kick from the engine, so you get 120% of that power to the back wheel. Yeah. Turn it all the way up to turbo, on the Bosch system at least, you then get 300% more. So put 100 watts in, 400 watts gets delivered to the back wheel. Yeah. So that's sort of how they work, and obviously that impacts on the battery life.
Of course, yeah, and that's obviously something I'm guessing we're going to see improve in the future. Because at the minute, I don't know about you, but it's definitely something you've got to be really careful on longer rides, how you're using that. Mm-hmm. And I've always found toggling between those modes, trying to get the most out of it, when you're watching that little range head-up display, and that range slowly decreases. Yeah. When you're in turbo, you start to panic knowing that you've got so far to ride home.
There's a learning sort of curve with how to use the engine or the motor to its sort of maximum potential.
Who do you think they're going to benefit though? Or are they going to benefit people?
I think there's definitely people who will benefit from that. I wouldn't say that only certain people can ride them. I think everyone should be allowed to ride them. Yeah. But I guess the people who benefit most would be perhaps people who want to sort of go out with a group who maybe are a fair bit fitter than them. So it gives access to those people who previously would be denied sort of the ability to ride with a group of mates. People coming back from injury, or older people who again maybe don't have that fitness but want to be able to get out and have that bit of assistance. So you can't just plug an e-mountain bike system into a standard mountain bike. So obviously some things have to be changed and some components aren't quite the same. So what are we sort of seeing in the world of mountain bikes for e-bikes?
Well, Shimano, SRAM and the likes of Fox suspension are all starting to do dedicated products that are more robust, that will handle the extra strain and the weight of big bikes like the ones sat behind us. And the bike brands are looking to integrate the batteries and the motors. Things are obviously gearing up, and the brands are working to try and make these bikes last and be more robust, I guess, because they are heavy. They are a lot bigger than our normal trail bikes that we're used to riding.
So it seems like e-mountain bikes are on the rise. The industry seems pretty positive about them. We've kind of enjoyed riding the few we have. But do you think they're ever going to become mainstream?
If by mainstream do you mean, is it going to be the only bike I'd go out and buy? Probably not right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're heaps of fun to ride, but I feel like I ride it in quite a different way. I still really enjoy riding a regular trail bike or whatever, popping and jumping around the track and having a bit of fun. And e-bikes are just very different. It's just a very different experience, and it's great, but I still want to be able to do ride how I like to ride on a regular bike for the time being at least. And I mean, I'm looking forward to when I'm 70 and I can still jump on an e-bike and ride around all the same trails that I'm used to riding now. But yeah, right now, especially while they're still so pricey, no, I don't think they're going to be mainstream as such.
I mean, like you, I don't think I'd ever sort of buy one for myself. I can see the application of them. I was saying our photographer has one and he uses it for big day shoots. There's a time and a place, but I'd never write one off. And yeah, like if someone wants to go and ride one, I've got no sort of great ideological hatred towards mountain bikes with a little bit of pedal assist. So yeah, why not?